the deacons, 4 of the deacons in this little Baptist church. Drove all us kids down, Judy, myself, probably Jimmy and Eddie and the rest of us, down to hear Billy Graham preach at a crusade in Louisville, Kentucky, 1956. And Polly Kerger and Brother Kerger were the pastor and his wife. You remember them, JR?
Yeah, who was the guy that come in there after that?
Well, there's Brother Huss, Brother Foley, Red Foley was there. And I remember Brother Kerger.
Oh, you remember Kraut, Alan Kraut.
Alan Kraut, yeah. Now, he was a minister there, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah, I liked it. He played basketball.
Oh, yeah, he's a good player. We rode down on that old rickety church bus to Louisville, Kentucky in 1956. Billy Graham was preaching, and that's where I gave my life to the Lord. And the George Beverly Shea sang 2 songs. One of them I just sang for you, I'd Rather Have Jesus, and the other one, How Great Thou Art. And Cliff Barrows was the choir director. And that's where Judy and I went down and gave our life to the Lord. I think she was about 9 and I was about 13. This little church right here. 1-room church. The Sunday school rooms were partitioned off by wires and curtains. You remember that, JR?
Yeah.
Used curtains. And on down here, you'll see the Kenton Lakes, they used to call it. And
Lakes is,
right here.
can do no fishing now.
No, it looks like it's covered over with mostly moss.
What it looks like.
Yeah.
The
Probably still some good sized fish in there, though.
what's their names that on it?
Reimers.
Reimers.
Bucky Reimer. Remember
Yeah,
Bucky Reimer?
Charlie Reimer.
Charlie Reimers. Now here's where Moffett Road is. This is what we'll go up and eventually here, but I wanted to show you down where the old swimming pool was. Now there's where the Applegates lived.
Yeah, they used to be a little store.
Store there, yeah. That was Tommy Applegate, who graduated in high school with us. Very nice gentleman. Big tall boy, about 6'5". And right down here on the right, of course it might not anything be here now, but down here on the right was the old Kenton swimming pool. I skinned my nose one night, I know, diving in there, because it was very shallow. Darlene Haynes lived down here somewhere, and David Haynes.
I think we're past the pool.
We're past the pool, aren't we?
Yeah. I remember that little bridge, and it was on the other side.
Well, we'll turn around down here when it's feasible. Yep, there's the hill up there. Now there's where Mickey Kemper lives. I'll show you up here. Now I'm trying to think of who's what was the guy's name that was owned this farm here?
A big house.
This is where Greg worked all the time. Greg worked down here with this farmer.
My son, Greg?
Yeah. Yeah, he worked down here with he was real good friends with the sons of this guy that owned this farm on the left. I can't think what his name is, though.
That's the farmhouse right up there.
Yeah. But now right here's where Mickey Kemper lives.
Yeah.
I was out here to see him the other day.
Sure enough. Huh?
Yeah.
Come out here to see him the other day.
I came out here with Larry Hensley and visited with him. I'd go in there right now, but it'd be too hard for us to do.
Wouldn't bother him.
I don't think he's able to get out of the house, JR.
Oh, yeah, I remember that car. He brought that up there to the
Reunion?
reunion.
Yep.
Don't look like he's driving much now.
Mickey's a very nice fella. I'm glad we paid that visit with him, and I videoed him and put it on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Now there's a guy that lived there that was Greg worked with a lot on the farm down to here.
Remember that house?
Right there.
Yeah. And right here's the little road that goes over back over to DeCourcy.
Yeah.
Conley Road that we just passed before.
Yeah, that's,
JR's right, the pool was up here somewhere on the left. But no longer there, that's for sure. But probably some remnants are there if you went back in there and looked. It says no trespassing. Probably back in there, I see some campers down there and there. Probably back in there somewhere.
back in through here somewhere.
Yeah. Kenton swimming pool. And it was actually a pool you paid to get into. Really interesting.
Yeah, that Tommy Applegate, is that his name? Tommy?
Yeah, Tom Applegate.
Well, I remember Taylor was coach. He thought, well, this guy's so tall. I'm going to try to get him out here and see if he could play basketball.
Yeah.
Well, he couldn't play basketball with the guy.
Well, you know, just unless you start younger, you know.
He was big and tall, thin, real thin,
Yeah.
but he couldn't. I don't think he ever played before.
I doubt if he did. He was about 6'5", 6'6",
Well,
maybe.
I might have been taller than that. Might have been close to 6'8".
He was tall. Still is when I see him. Still is tall and thin. I see him every once in a while. He used to come to some of the class things. Well, I remember this hill a lot, Gerald. Just going up this hill from church, you know.
Yeah.
Being ran in that old 51 Chevrolet.
Yeah.
I can remember having to get out and put chains on the tires right up here on this steep part of these hills. Because when you get out of church, the snow would come and you didn't put the chains on here, you didn't make it home.
Yeah, that's right.
The road was only about half this.
Oh yeah, it was small, narrow, about half this size. Yep. This is Moffett Hill here.
Yeah.
Now this is a longer, but it's not as steep as Martin Hill.
No.
Martin Hill was really steep. At least the first part of it was. It was short, but it was steep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we pump up all these hills.
We pumped all these hills around here, didn't we?
Sure did.
And old Philip Casson rode me on my brand new bike to. Philip Casson's still alive, by the way.
Is he sure not?
He's the only one I think left alive of the Cassons. And of our age, yeah. Philip Casson goes there to Hickory Grove Baptist Church, and he took my brand new bike and me, because I couldn't ride quite yet.
That's where the box lived.
Yeah, that's where the Box live over there on the left. And then later, I think the Applegates live back here on the right, on a farm.
And in the box, they had a bunch of kids.
Yep, they did. Yeah, I think it was back in there where the Applegates lived. And the Box lived over here. But anyway, Philip Casson took that new Firestone bike I had and rode me to the store, JR, on the center of it. And
On the handlebars?
on the handlebars, yeah. And so
George
Bach Road rode me up to the store, and coming back, a car ran us off the road, and my leg got caught in the spikes, broke all the spikes out, and we both were just completely destroyed the bike.
No.
It didn't do you any good either.
No, it didn't do me any good either, I tell you. Now, Janet Stanley lives up here somewhere on the right, or used to. She lives over on Stanley Road, on Stevenson Road now.
Yeah.
Stevens Road. But yeah, she lived up here, and we were out here for, several class meetings.
Yeah.
She lived up here on the
Look at all
farm.
houses now.
I think she lived, I think it was right here is where she lived. Yeah, I think so. Right there.
Something, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's where she lived. It was right along here somewhere.
I used to come down in there and pick somebody up on the church.
Yeah. And John Gray, you remember the teacher John Gray?
Yeah.
He lived up here too.
Here by the church.
Lived up there by Oak Island Church.
Yeah.
No, this is where Jan and Stanley lived. Right here. I was wrong. I think it was right here. It's where she lived. I'd recognize that house, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but that's what I think. Well, it's beautiful there, isn't it? Look how they got that cleaned off nice. That's pretty. That is pretty.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a motorcyclist coming here.
Flying too.
Sheesh. Boy, he is flying, I will say that. Now there's a little Oak Island Baptist Church, and we've sang in there many a time, Gerald, haven't we? Frank Jackson was like chairman of the deacons there. And there, right there on the left, is where Mr. Gray lived.
Yeah.
John Gray.
On the left, yeah.
And his son
Yeah.
and family.
Yeah.
Now these other people out here, I don't know them.
No, I don't either. I know if I see him.
But down here on the right, there was the Fred Nyhoff farm. Now here's where some relatives of ours live, in this little yellow house here on the right, Gerald. Gene and Gene Sipple.
Okay.
You remember the Sipples? Gene and Gail Sipple.
Yes.
Now they were kin to us, and they lived there in that little yellow house there.
Mm-hmm.
They were both very smart and very nice young men.
Nice.
They were a little older than us, though.
Yeah.
Do you remember them, JR?
Yeah.
Time just rolls on, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
It's on the top, and we're above all of it.
There's where Stanley Larson used
Is
to-
that where Stanley Larson lived?
Yeah.
Oh, on the left there.
Down here, there was a cheerleader
Cheerleader?
Which, who was that?
that lived there.
Who was that?
She was a pretty girl. She was a cheerleader. She was a couple years, 2 or 3 years older than us.
Do we remember her name?
Oh, yeah.
What was her name?
I don't remember her name, but what was her name? Seemed like she was about the age of Bill Moore in that group.
Oh, okay.
Sandy.
Sandy Dozier, maybe? Or now here's the back here. This is the Nyhoff
Yeah.
farm. Back in there.
Yeah.
And I put in hay and bivacca for him.
I never did work.
What's
there.
the name
And
of it?
Fred Nyhoff. Boy, he was a taskmaster.
Yeah.
50 cents an hour, and about every other word was a cuss word. I worked for about I worked for a few weeks for him, and I finally went back home, and I told him, I said, I quit.
I never did work for him.
And he came down to the house and tried to get Dad to tell me to come back up and work. And I told Dad, I said, I'm not going to work for him. He cusses all the time, and I just don't like that. So I never worked for him anymore. Probably a good farmer, though, I'm sure. It's beautiful homes that built back here, aren't
Oh,
they?
yeah. Now, this is right when you get to the top of the hill here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Rector Road right here on the right. Todd lives back on Rector Road,
Yeah.
Gerald's son.
He's
Got a
living
nice
there
home.
right now, isn't he?
He's not there right now. He's living there still, yeah.
Yeah.
And then down here right on the right, of course, Gerald, you didn't even realize all these things they built out here.
Oh, yeah.
Hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah.
All this stuff built across the street from you. My goodness gracious sakes alive. And there's where Gerald lived right there.
Yeah.
And so, I think the Grants live there now. That's who we sold it to.
Yeah.
Gerald always kept this place meticulous.
Yeah.
And it was a job to mow it all, wasn't it, Gerald?
Sure was.
But he did a beautiful job, I'll tell you. And that's where the Douglas girls lived.
Yeah.
And I can't think of the couple that lived there after that. And up here's where the Grants lived. And they bought the rest of this property out through here.
Yeah.
The Grants right there. I'm sure it's probably still lived there. And then here's a little house here, 2994 Moffett Road. I built this house. June and I did. Our last home to build.
Yeah.
Put up these fence posts.
You lived right in the corner up there, didn't you?
Lived in the corner right here, 2 acres. And the Roys lived over here on the left. JR, you remember Bill? Not Bill Roy. This was Dave Roy.
Yeah.
Dave and Brenda.
Yeah.
I don't know who lived over in these houses over here.
Curves lived over here somewhere.
We were just driving by in memories.
Oh, yeah?
I built that house over there.
Oh, yeah, I remember you.
Oh, do you remember me? John Stephenson? Yeah. Yep, we're driving around with my brother Gerald. He's in the back seat. What's your name? Martin? Well, God bless you. Nice to see you again. Yeah, we built this house here, and then who lives there now? Do you know? Huh?
How's your wife been?
My wife, she's doing good, pretty good. Yeah, she's still suffers from Crohn's disease, but she's doing pretty good.
I'll tell you what, you did a good thing of putting that post in right there. A car come through there and got hit the other day.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
I see it's been over there.
2 cars hit, and that post kept that car from going right through there.
Oh my, boy, I praise the Lord for that.
Yeah.
Well, I put a lot of good posts in there, and that fence, I loved it when I did that. That was sort of something I really wanted to do. This is Jim Noakes. Do you remember the Noakeses?
No.
Lived down on Martin Road down here on the left. The Noakeses in the small woods.
I lived here since '01.
So, since '01? Well, it's a pleasure to see you
Gerald
again.
is my name back
This
here.
is Gerald, my brother. He used to live right down the street in a little mobile home down here that we sold to the Grants.
Oh, okay.
He lives down at Provident Pavilion right now with his wife Dorothy.
Yeah.
And no, this is where my mom and dad moved out here when I was just about, what, JR, 7 years old? About 7 years old. And their house, of course, was shoved over the hill, so it's not there anymore. It was a little 4-room frame house, but I always dreamed, my mother had a dream of building this big house up on the ridge, and so I came out here and built my last home out here.
Yeah.
Was you here when I built it?
Yeah, I was here before it was built.
Is that right? Well, it was a job getting it all done.
Yeah. I worked a lot then.
Did you? Well, God bless you, and you take care.
All right, buddy.
Nice to see you again.
Take care.
Have a good day.
Was anybody hurt in the accident?
I'm sheep. No, not really.
Oh, good,
A couple scratches.
good. Well, I'm glad the post was there for him. And for you, too.
I told him, I said, I'll help you put it back. I got some sacks of concrete.
Well, thank you now. I think they must have a swimming pool there now.
Kind of looks that way.
Put a fence around it.
Now, there's where Carol Kerr used to live.
Yeah.
Back through there.
Yeah.
I got a picture of her and I together. Me playing the guitar. She was a nice lady, I tell you. And I'm trying to think of the name of the folks there. June would know, but I can't remember. But I remember here, this is where Bonnie Friedman lives now.
Is that right?
They have her and Tom, they have this little landscaping place here, nursery. And that's where Mr. Fightmaster used to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sit out on his porch and play the banjo, wouldn't he, JR? Sit out on his porch and play the banjo like Gerald used to sit out on his porch and play the guitar.
Yeah.
As I had people tell me about it. There's where the old house sat, on Martin Road. But they tore the old house down and shoved it over the hillside,
Yeah.
and built this little house here in the barn, or garage here. We had a barn back behind it. And then the Crosses lived right here, didn't they, JR?
Yeah.
The Crosses. And one of them, I think one of them might, no, not the Crosses, but who lives there? I'm trying to think of who lives there. Bonnie? Or not Bonnie.
The guy lived there and got drunk a lot.
Yeah, I trying to think of what his name was. I can't think of what his name was. But Janet Cross, Patsy Cross, and Butch Cross, and the Cross was Johnny Cross and Mrs. Cross, who was a wonderful lady, lived there. But the lady, I think, is still alive that lives there.
Is that right?
Yeah. And then the Dunns used to live down here, I think, in this house down here on the left.
Yeah.
But they've remodeled it, looks like.
There used to be a pond right there.
Used to be a pond. Yeah, there's still a little pond down there. And down here was where the Martins lived, I think, but they've taken that house down too, I
Yeah.
think.
Looks like
Well, look here, this is a new house they're building here, so they must have taken the old Dunn house down.
it. Yeah.
That's a new one that's going up.
That's what it looks like, doesn't
Yeah. All the years we played basketball down here in front of this old shed.
it? Yeah.
Do you remember that, JR?
Oh, yeah.
And I think the Lions lived there. Was
Yeah.
it Stanley and Leonard?
Leonard, Stanley, Cass. Yeah, they tore that down.
I don't think they got the shed in there anymore where we had the basketball goal, do they?
Used to be right in here.
Yeah, we used to be right there where that driveway is. But
Used to
there you
be,
go.
like that old
Lean-to or something, or corn crib.
corn crib.
And here's the Noakes house right here on the left.
Yeah.
One sister and three boys, right? And Jim was the oldest. And across the street over here was Ed and David Smallwood, Mr. Bill Smallwood, Miss Alita Smallwood, who's 95 now. Mr. Smallwood gone on to heaven. Ed and David are still alive. And Jeff and Cindy are still alive, and Wayne is still alive. Many a time I got a piece of pie there from Mrs. Noakes. And many a time I got cookies from Mrs. Smallwood. And played a lot of softball right here on this field. Do you remember that, JR?
Oh, yeah.
We was always constantly hitting the side of the Roy house with the balls.
The house with the ball.
When we got too big, we could hit it farther. But that was the ball field right there. And this is where Bill Roy, who was a great baseball pitcher, and I do mean great, he could throw the ball, couldn't he? Bill Roy. He was an excellent baseball pitcher at Simon Kenton High School.
Back in there. Going back there.
I'm trying to think who Mrs. Sims lived down here on the right.
Yeah.
The Simses lived down here on the right, and their son was J.D. Sims, who dated Mayor Ruth and was madly in love with her. Because when I went down to UK my first year, he was down there as a college student, older than me, and he used to tell me how much he was in love with Mayor Ruth. He was a very handsome man. Mayor Ruth, of course, wound up. She was suited by about 5 guys, I think. They were all after her. Her and Barbara Jean both were fabulous-looking girls, and so was Miss Judy. She was queen of Cumberland College. But Mayor Ruth was suited by several, including J.D. Sims, and wound up marrying Jackie Robinson, a minister and motorcycle rider. He was in the service too, but he ministered a little church over on Taylor Mill.
Yeah.
Taylor Mill Church of Christ. Yep, there's the Smallwoods place. See, it seemed so big back in those days,
Yeah.
and today when you look at it, it's really so small. But it was back in the days we were here.
Big.
It was huge, wasn't it,
Yeah,
Jr.?
this field,
Yeah, your dad had all this here, didn't he?
no, he didn't own this. He had a chance to buy it.
Oh,
And
okay.
he never did, which he should have done. But they put the
Somebody out west,
they put the back end here.
did they?
The-
Yeah.
What's his name up there? That Freeman.
Oh, Corky Freeman.
I don't know if it's Corky or that Tommy Strain.
Oh, Tommy Strain probably did. Yeah. I remember when Mr. Kerr come out there and built that house over across the way there, and that was a beautiful place. I've got some pictures of the old house that we grew up in. It was a 4-room frame house with no inside facilities. Dad bought that and about 12 acres here. This was all part of Dad's little farm, and we had an old cow, Daisy cow. Daisy was her name. It was Jersey cow, good for milk. But I remember when the Kerrs built that house, it was all modern. Beautiful place. Beautiful. And there's where Brenda Roy lived, and Dave Roy. Nice people. Brenda was in real estate for many years, did an excellent job. This is, I'm trying to think what the name of this road is that went back through here. Trace Run.
Mr. Rector.
Mr. Rector back there lived back there, and here's where Frank Jackson's farm was. And it was one of the most modern farms in all of northern Kentucky.
That one right there.
Yeah, right here on the right, and then this barn over on the left.
Oh, I fixed it.
And then later their family, I think, built up here,
Oh, man.
and one of his sons, I think, still lives up here, that operates the farm, lives up here on the right. Right there.
Yeah.
Wonderful people. He was nice to work for, wasn't he, Jim? Moffett Road. This is 2 miles from there. 2 miles from on Moffett Road, down off of 17. We walked many a time, probably thousands of times.
Yeah.
Rode bikes, walked, hitchhiked. Of course, now we live over at 38 McCullum Pike in Independence, Kentucky. Oh, there's the dog. Now there is where, I'm trying to think, there's a policeman that lives there now, I think. But I'm trying to think up here, this was Judy Palmer, was it? House here on the right? That one right there, because I think it was that house right there. Judy something lived there. Judy Hoffman, I think it was, yeah. And didn't the Smallwoods move up here one time?
Guy that lived there, my dad.
Oh, is that right?
And who?
It seemed like the Smallwoods moved up here one time. Maybe they moved up to where the old Dawkins house was. But up here's where the Steelys lived. Art, Miss Steely, one of Mom's great friends, like Miss Smallwood was. They were always really good friends, and Miss Noakes. And right there's where the Steelys lived. And Cheryl Elston lived here in this house on the right. And over here's where Larry Hensley used to keep his horse, in this barn right there. And that's where the Dawkins used to live. Now somebody else lives in there now. That's where Johnny Dawkins' dad built a house. And but some really nice people live there now and own that stable there. I don't know too many of these other people out here now, but I used to know everybody up and down this road. Didn't we, JR? Now this is the Dawkins' original farm up here. On the left, Johnny Dawkins' dad. And I think that's where the Smallwoods lived for a while before they went over to Independence and bought that brick house. Either had it built or bought it. Here's where the Stephens lived, up here. Judy Stevens and Gene Stevens. And they were both school teachers and retired. And Judy gone on to heaven. I think Gene's still alive. I think they both taught at Dixie Heights High School, I think. I filmed, I think, Judy Stevens' funeral. She was our valedictorian. Hello, how you doing? What's your name? What's your name?
Jim.
Nice to meet you. I think he was scared. Now there's Denny Freeman, a garage, a car lot. Now we're headed, that was 2 miles up that road.
Yeah.
And now we're headed on down to Independence.
Yeah.
That's called Atwood back there, and there's a big farm there. We always went like that, and every time we got an opportunity to go to that house, we did. That was called the rich man's house. Remember that, JR?
Look at the land outlay.
I think that was the Percival's house, wasn't it?
I think so.
I think the Bridges live up here on the right.
Yeah.
Galen Bridges, and I think maybe Jeff Bridges. I'm back here for a fundraiser one time for Kim Mosier. That beautiful house there. Got a beautiful swimming pool behind it. Some 3 kittens there. We got 3 cats already. Don't need any more. Praise the Lord. Wee Nestor, Josephine, and Zacchaeus. That used to be a restaurant right there called McKinley's, didn't it, JR?
Yeah.
We stopped in there and had a big stack of French fries many a time, didn't we?
Yep. Max. Good Max.
Mac McKinley, I think. And of course, here's what used to be called the Chicken Roost. It's called now Peacock's 2. And you can get a good steak dinner in there. Really, to be honest with you, a very good steak dinner in there now. There's the Bridges upholstery stop. He's done some upholstery work for June on her Beetle. Of course, the Veterans Office out there, the Dieter's office, and the BB&T Bank, which used to be the Boone State Bank, and the U.S. Bank is on down here, Independence. And we'll go right by Kenton Elementary, where we both went to school. You went to Kenton Elementary too, didn't you, Jim? Yeah. Kenton Elementary, and then Simon Kenton High School. You know, a lot of people don't care much for their high school and grade school. But one thing about Eddie Smallwood and Jimmy Noakes and myself and Gerald, we've always thought a lot of our high school, haven't we, Gerald?
Yeah.
I mean, I was quite proud to go to school there. You were too, weren't you, Jim? And so was Ed. We had some really good teachers there that we liked very well. Who do you remember from grade school, Jim, that you had? Do you remember your first grade teacher?
Well, I didn't go there in first grade. I went there.
When did you go there?
Fourth, fifth, and sixth. I had Miss Williams
Did you have Miss Williams?
and Miss Reed,
Miss Reed?
and Mr. Earl.
And Mr. Earl. Oh, boy. Phew. They were some tough teachers, I tell you.
I liked them all.
I liked them all, too. They were good teachers. And then I had Mr. Earl, Mr. Bailey, Miss Williams, and I had Miss Cooper. There's the Kenton Elementary School right there. I tell you what. Kenton Elementary School, and there's Simon Kenton. Now, who'd you have at Simon Kenton that you remember? I can remember Oni Riley for geography. I can remember Mr. Best for math.
Mr. Best.
Gay Best. Miss Hinsdale for history. And Mr. Losey for business and typing, and Mr. Massey. Mr. Massey was a wonderful teacher. Mr. Losey, wonderful teacher. Both still alive. And Mr. Faulkner, you remember Mr. Faulkner?
Mr. Faulkner.
Coach and teacher, too. And, Miss Reed. Miss Taylor, she was like a counselor. Bob Taylor for English. Mr. Osbach was a coach. Mr. Reed was a coach. Mr. Edmondson was basically our principal for my senior year. Mr. Hinsdale was principal for before that, and he became superintendent. The Pioneers. Simon Kenton Pioneers. It's quite, look at the growth of the building here. Goodness gracious. Who else do you remember? Anybody else? Teachers?
The ones you remember.
I'm trying to think if I'm missing somebody. Let's see. We didn't have these football fields or anything like this when we were here. They didn't have football. But look at that field they got down there now for baseball. Yeah. My goodness, that's a nice field, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, look at the sizes. All this is new here added on.
Yeah.
And then a big football stadium here. We had a cinder track. And that's where it's now paved, you know. But we had a cinder track. It had just been built. Kids down there practicing something. I'm trying to think of who all other teachers that we had. Mrs. Brown, Mrs. Heitzman.